So this video is all about creating this hatch, but before we do, of course, we've just painted the rear end of the machine guns, and we can actually very quickly install these into our aircraft. So you'll notice, and you may remember, that when we came to create the bulkhead right at the beginning, there were a couple of little holes in the sort of forward cockpit bulkhead with the little graphic on with the dashboard, and those two holes in the end of the machine guns there should go through. Now I'm just going to, I've got an implement here. This is actually a file, but I'm just going to open those up a little bit just to make sure those machine guns go in, but you can test fit them like so. Is it? Well, they went in nice and easy on the one that I built off camera. Of course they did. So that's, there we go. I just needed a little bit of persuasion. So they just sit there like that. Lovely bit of detail, not too much in the way of additional weight. So just going to grab a little bit of glue. Just put a little bit of glue on the front of those. Getting down to the end of the glue now, starting to clog up a bit more. So let's just get rid of that. There we go. A little bit of glue on the end, and then pop that into place. That's one nice little detail done. There we go. So, yeah, they're sitting nicely, looking like machine guns. Fantastic. Great. Okay, well, we can now get on with that hatch, and we are going to need a plethora of parts. Stickers, yes, there are actually some stickers that are required. We'll come on to that in a second. Plastics, yes, we've got just one, well, two in two parts. And that's the P27 parts. Oh, P34 as well, I guess technically is part of the hatch too. So we'll be using that. But predominantly, as you've seen with what I've shown you, we are looking at Z13 and some of the plywood parts. In fact, we haven't touched the plywood parts yet. So the motor mount we will do prior to putting the top wing on, but that can stay off for now. But we are going to need those, and obviously our little magnets that we've got left as well. We're going to need a couple of those, the smaller 3mm ones. So let's crack on with, oh, and the 2mm part that we need is one I've already removed from there, so this must be the sprue that I used for the first build. So let me find the one for the second build, and we'll crack on with that. In fact, there are a few more parts than just the that one. What is it? D25. We've got D21 through to D25, so that's that little lot there. So that's the rest, apart from those the ribs there for the upper wing. That's those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts that we need from the 2mm. So let's crack on with that. We'll get, obviously we were also Z13, we need to do some shaping too, or scoring I should say. So let's get all of these parts out and start the build. So I've got all of the 2mm parts out from D21 and 22, 23, 24 and the D25, those parts there. I'm going to need P33, which is that part there, which I have already cut out. And that's enough of the plastics for now. Now, that P33 goes directly onto the D22, like so. As you can see, it all lines up with all of the cavities that have been cut into the two parts. So that just requires a little bit of the old glue. There we go. There we go, like so. Just make sure everything lines up. You can pop that to one side. There we go. And then what we need to do is build up our nose section. So that requires us just to stack these parts on top of one another like so. So we start off with our D21, then the D23 goes on top, and then the D24 sits on top of that. As you can see, that actually comes below that curve that's cut out of the nose part for clearance for the motor, but it's not required right at the front there. So we can once again glue all of these parts together. So that's D23 onto D21. I put the glue onto the D21 so that I didn't get glue on the inside of this little cavity here, and that is actually to allow the battery to recess into there somewhat. So actually make sure these all line up. And then just pop a bit of glue on the front here. We don't want to go all the way down to the bottom because obviously that is the back of that will be on the rear of the curve there. So once again, don't want any glue hanging around in areas it's not needed. Make sure all those tops line up. There we go. And then that sits onto our D22 with the plastic part on, with the plastic part well here facing up, but obviously it's the rear part because that's the front of the nose there and the rear there. So just add some glue to the back here. And that stacks up like so. So if we look at that from the front, just make sure that all lines up. Then we can leave that to dry off for a little while. And whilst that is drying, we can free our plywood parts, so P2 and P3. This is where I show I need a new knife. A new blade anyway. This one is feeling a little bit on the blunt side. There we go. Good. So let's just take that off there. Now whilst we have this in its unfettered state, I'm going to actually just narrow down the back edge here. This is the bit that actually slots into the slot in the fuselage, holding the hatch in place, apart from obviously the magnets at the front. And if I just thin that down a bit at the front, it just makes it easier when it comes to putting the hatch on for it to go into that slot. So there we go. Excuse me. You'll also notice that there are scores down the side here on P2, creating these little triangular sections. And what you need to do is, it should just fold. There should be enough of a score there to just fold that material down like so at an angle, and that angle should equate to the angle on here. You can see the 3 slots there should match up with the 3 tabs on the front of P2. And that should all slot in place like so. So that now you have nose on a stick. So I'm just going to pull that out again and obviously pop a little glue in. No, it's not going to come out. That's well and truly in. So actually what I'll do is, using a little bit of rocket, needs freeing as well. I'll just put a little bit of the CA glue, because that's going to work as effectively between the 2 materials. There we go. So just make sure that that's all pressed home firmly so that it's sitting in at the right angle. There we go. Right, now, while that's just drying off, we shall release P3. Now this is, I've just realised, P for plywood, P for plastic. Anyway, it's easy. Obviously, the difference is obvious. So let's just get our P3 out. I think we normally use W for wood rather than P for plywood. There we go. So my D.25 should actually match up to the plywood like so. So I'll just stick those 2 parts together. go. And we'll just let that dry off. Pop it over there. Make sure all the glue's off my fingers. And get rid of that now. Put it in a safe place. And we can now prepare some of the other parts. So firstly, let's grab P26. Go. And grab the score guide, because on the score guide we have P26. And you'll also notice on P26 you've got a couple of little notches on it too, and those signify where those scores run to. So I'm actually going to stick this down. There, and then in the same style as with the foam, I'm going to use the back of the knife and score. It's just not staying where it should do. So back of the knife. I'm going to do that several times. This is obviously, this material is a little more resistant to scoring than your 1mm foam. So go. So that should be enough to now gently put in a bend the material like so. There we go. So that forms the front part of our radiator, and we will be sticking, once this is all dry, we will be sticking that onto there like so. But we'll give that a few more minutes to dry. And we shall grab Z13 here. And prepare this for installation. Keep hold of this for now, although all of the parts are out. There may be a requirement to grab a few little scrap bits. So let's pop that onto the score sheet. And then fix it. There we go. And pop those scores in as required. Obviously in these little delicate areas we need to be delicate. And as you can see, we have some scores that go down the side here, but they only go as far as the dotted lines. That's why the dotted lines have been put there, so you can see exactly where to start or stop. Let's just turn that around so we can see that dotted line. There we go. So let's carefully remove this now from the score sheet. And then before we start popping the or folding the scores, I'm going to suggest that with your ball tool you knock down some of the white edges. So certainly this interior part here is where the engine sits, so we can actually sort of knock this material down to reduce that white edge. Make sure it's well supported while you're doing that. There's no need to do these side edges, but certainly at the front here it's worth pushing this material down where it comes into contact with that plastic radiator part, like so. There we go. So now we can just fold it along those score lines, like so. There we go. So that's ready, and then the scores at the edge there, you just want to just break the edges at right at the back here. Don't try and push them along here, you'll end up probably snapping through, but just make sure that they're folding over, because they need to basically wrap around that little curve there, so that's why they've been scored at the edge there, so it'll fold down. There we go. Okay, so that's ready for installation. Before we do, let's attach our composite part here with the plywood facing towards the back. Now there are a couple of little slots at the back there, and the plywood should sit into that area there, so we can now glue that to that particular spot. Once again, you can use the foam safe CA or the foam to foam, both work very well in this area. There we go. Okay, so while that's drying off, we will apply our radiator graphic to the front portion of the hatch, and you'll want the radiator to sit so that it is flush with that bottom part of the stack that we've just created. So I'm going to put some glue at the front there, and then on the edges of the stack as we move down there. Now if you have built micro aircraft before, you'll be hopefully sighing a relief that you don't actually have to try and carve these or sand them down. No need for that because the plastic is rigid enough to be structural. So let's just place that on there, and you'll notice that there is a little lip that sticks up at the top there, and obviously this will butt up against the skin that we're going to be putting on there as soon as this is on and ready. So the part should fold down to the last stack part there and just sit on it with a slight overlap. So I'm just leave that as is. It's probably, yes, it's coming off where it's supposed to be stuck to, but as soon as that glue is a little bit more tacky, we will push it home, and it should stay where we want it to. Right, I've just pushed the plastic radiator part onto the foam below, and the next step is to actually attach the skin of the hatch, and it's a fairly straightforward process of folding the front of the part, the leading edge of the part, around the radiator and onto the foam below, and then obviously attaching it at the back here. It's a couple of stages, so we'll add the glue to the edges that we need it to attach to. Go, and down there. And then we'll just pop it on like so. Then we'll go down one side. We're just transferring the glue over at the moment. There we go. And the other side. There we go. So glue transferred over. I think we've got enough on there. I might add a little bit more. Obviously it's worth doing to make sure that this is secure. There we go. And we'll leave that to dry for a little while and then bring it back together, and then we'll do the rear section, and then we can start putting I can take my little holdy piece off now, so that should just extract like so. So that's now ready to go on. Oh, and the other thing that I did mention this, but I didn't actually show you, was that I actually dusted the tips of the exhaust with the silver dry brush, just to make those stand out, like so. Worth doing. Right, is this dry yet? Dry-ish. Okay, so obviously getting it central first time is always a good idea. Right to the front there, that's it. And then well, let's just leave it there so that that glues properly, and then we'll fold it down. Okay, it's had a few minutes to dry, so let's see how it fares. Go. Perfect. So you can actually push down a little more with the ball, just to completely annihilate those white edges. There we go. And then it's just a matter of attaching the parts to the back here. You can see where that that scoring allows it to curve like so. And you want these parts, these side parts, to be flush with the top of the plywood there. So let's just add a little bit of glue to that area. Go. And the other side too. Just got a nice little blob on the outside there, but wipe that off and just bring them in contact there. You might have a bit of an overhang on the plywood. Don't worry about that. If it is a hindrance, then we can obviously remove it, but it shouldn't be too bad. It really all depends on how the fuselage has been built up. I did notice on the one that I created earlier, just pop that to one side to dry off. The when I put the hatch on, there was actually quite a bit of a gap there, so I actually used a little bit of extra material to add to it to make sure that it went right up to the bulkhead at the front there. Funnily enough, with the original aircraft, the hatch was absolutely perfect, but I think it's basically the way that this upper part has been attached, and it determines where exactly this part sits as well, with the bulkhead, because obviously this is slightly flexible and it can move forward or backwards to some extent, and obviously it's set back probably about 0.5 millimeter. So to bridge that gap, I just cut a little bit of the extra printed material, which was the same colour as the hatch itself, and just added a strip there. So we'll see where this lands on my other build. So let's just. I think the glue still needs a little bit of drying time. Yeah. What we could do here is just use a little bit of tape to hold it down while it dries. And on the other side. Not my usual method, but it's another method you can use to make sure that the glue and the part sits where you want it to. So we'll just leave that over there for now. Whilst that is drying off, we'll make the little radiator top cap piece. Now there's the bit that I painted. Let's just remove that quite easily from the tray, which can now be disposed of. And I'm just going to sand the underside there, just to make sure it's flat. There we go. Now I'm going to grab from the plastics sheet not that plastics sheet though. Looks like I've been confusing my plastic sheets. Here we go. P27. So there are 2 of these. Now, the area this part is being attached to is relatively vulnerable on the aircraft. It's obviously right at the front of the aircraft, on top of the radiator, and if you flip the aircraft over, it's quite susceptible. So I thought, when designing this, that we should at least combine some of the more flexible materials we have with the 3D printed part. So the idea is that this tiny little part here gets glued onto its partner. So those two get glued together, and then the long prong that it makes goes through the hole in the 3D part. Now you can see that my hole is currently covered in paint, but I'm sure we can push through that. So let's just apply a teeny tiny little bit of glue to hold these two parts together. Go. So those are glued together now. And if I grab hold of them like that, we should be able to push that through. The hole in the part. Like so. So we get a composite part, there we go, that we can now pop onto the nose. Well, we won't at the moment, we'll let the glue dry on that. And I need to just make sure that they're sitting together properly, that's good. And we'll be putting them in. You can see that there is actually a little slot already cut in the top there, and what I'm going to do is just add a little extra by just popping the tip of the scalpel in there to make sure there is enough room for that the little spear to go in there. I'm just rearranging that, it was causing that to bend in slightly, so okay, well let's turn our attention to getting the magnets in place. So the magnets actually sit in the little recessed part here and here. So I'm actually going to add a little bit of glue to keep them in place. Not a great deal, because we're actually going to add some CA glue to the equation, like we did when we put the ones in the chin. So we'll just let that marinade, and we'll get our magnets, bring the aircraft on, because we are going to need some orientation. So these are the little 3mm magnets, so you should have, oh, don't drop them, John, you'll never find them again. So you should have 2 3mm and 1 4mm, and if you just pop the 2 3mm, put the 4mm back, pop them onto where they're going to be sitting when the hatch is on, and then you have the orientation that you need when you pop the hatch like that. So what you can do is, what I do is just slide the knife between the two and then pop the magnet off that I've just put on there, and then knowing that that's going to be going on this side here, I can then pop that in place where I've just put the glue. Just there, that's it. So I'll just let the glue go off on that. We'll do exactly the same on the other side. There we go. So once again, let the glue set, and then we'll add some extra glue to that to make sure that it stays there during usage. There we go. So that's the magnets attached. We've made our little piece for the top of the hatch. Just make sure it's all pressed together okay. And we've got our motor to go into the area here once our glue is dry. And we've got all of that set up. So let's get that CA glue going. So we're just going to add CA in and around the magnet. With the idea that this will be much better for holding it in place than the foam to foam, which is flexible, and here we want it to be rigid and strong. Okay, just going to wipe it away from the tops of the magnet, but we've got plenty sort of coating the magnet around the sides and the base as well. So I'm just going to leave that to dry like so, and we'll give it all a good half an hour to 3/4 of an hour to dry off, and come back to it and get it all together. In the meantime, I can sort my wheels out. So let's just pop off the wheels, give the tyres a bit of a stretch out, then roll those onto the rim of the wheel, like so. Make sure they're all sitting neatly. There we go. So to actually attach these wheels, firstly we're going to attach, oh look, brand new, it's ready in the wings waiting. I refuse to use it, I've still got some. Put a little bit on the tip of one, like so, and then pop that so that the carbon fibre just sits on the tip there. Now if there is any glue, and I have a little bit of glue here that's squidged out, I'm actually going to remove that. Like so. And then I'm going to apply a little to the tip here, and push that onto there, making sure I'm getting plenty of glue in. Then I'm going to wipe off as much of the glue as possible on there, and hopefully we have some now within the wheel axle. And now I'm going to pop this through the axle hole, and out the other side, and then pop this wheel on. And there we have. Got to remove the rigging wire, but we'll leave that till the end, till when we tidy things up. And now we have our wheels on. Splendid. While we're waiting for glue to go off, we can actually add P34. Now this is a little holding device for the battery, and it's scored several times. As you can see, there's a nice little graphic of a battery on there. So we just create a little box with it, like so, and then that box, I've got a battery. I'm sure I've got a battery there. There's a battery. I've got a battery. So that should accommodate a, what's that weird stuff? No, it's not coming out of it, thankfully. That should accommodate a battery, like so. So what we're going to do is attach that into the underside of our hatch just there. And as you know, there's a little bit of a cavity at the front here, and between that and our little battery holder, we should have a really nice place for the battery to sit. And it can take up to, I've been using the E-Flight, the E-Flight 150 milliamp hour batteries with the 45C discharge rate. They're slightly bigger than the 25s, but they work well. They last quite a long time as well, so getting flight times of sort of 7-8 minutes. So I'm just adding some glue to the bottom edges of our P34 part, and then just trying to form the shape that it will be in when it's in place. Oops. And then I'm just going to add it to the underside. I'm going to move it to about that position there. And it gives us quite a bit of room to put the battery into place. So and then it should hold it firm, and of course that battery also acts as a bit of ballast. So getting it as far forward as possible into the nose is always a very good idea. So there we go. Yet another thing to dry off while we wait. Okay, let us finish off this hatch. Let's remove our tape so that the sides are nicely stuck down. And the first bit we can do, which is always a lot of fun, is pop the engine top on. Now, if you want to, sorry, I should have mentioned this beforehand. If you want to, you can actually colour this part in black as well. Paint it, or use a Sharpie or something like that, just to sort of tone it down. You could also obviously paint the insides of the hatch too, but I'm going to leave it as is, and I'm just going to, as you can see, there's a cutout there for the exhaust. So the exhausts sit on the right hand, the starboard side, and this just gets pushed to point underneath the front part of the hatch there, and sits centrally. The motor sits centrally on the plywood part there, and the cylinders don't line up with the holes, unfortunately, but yeah. So you sit it there, and the back of this should be flush with the plywood at the back there too. The plywood that goes across rather than the plywood tongue that should be protruding from that point. So that's where we want to pop it, just there. And we can do that just as me getting my new foam to foam out. Just putting some glue on those cylinder edges, like so. And then pop it into place. Go. So the glue is going to dry a bit first. It's tending to pitch up slightly because it's squeezed underneath the this part here, but yes, shouldn't be too bad. I could tape it down, but I'm just waiting until it dries and then just push it firm. And the last stage of this hatch build is to put our little radiator top on, and so it's with the, you've got a curve on the little tube that sits on top, and that curves forwards, so that should be facing into the breeze. So that literally sits like so. So just need to open that hole up a little bit more. There we go, that's what we want. So let's just add a little bit of the glue. Blocked up again. Release me. Let's just pop it on there. That's a bit easier, isn't it? Nope. Still blocked. Oi. Don't want to get too much on there. There we go, and I'm peeling off all of the paint because I've got CA glue on my fingers. Oh well, I'm going to have to repaint that, which is such a shame. That was all going so well. So we'll do that. I'll get the brush out and pop some paint on there. You can see there the paint's just chipped off, but now probably the smallest stickers that we've ever done, S31. Now they sit front and back of that little part that we've just stuck on there, and so you can bravely pick one off and then pop it onto the front and back of this part. My eyes are crossing at the moment. So I want to get that. I want to get it central. It might have been an idea of doing it while it's off. There we go. No, nowhere near. I swear my eyesight was better last month. There we go. And one on the back as well. Well, that was easier. Splendid. So, there you have it. The hatch only needing a tiny little bit of a retouch on the paint department. I'm not going to stick it onto the aircraft just yet because I'm still waiting for that glue to dry, the CA glue. But as soon as it does, we'll pop this on and just make sure it all fits well. And if I need to add any extra bits at the back here, or take a little bit off, then that's what we'll do. What I probably will do with the production aircraft for this particular model is I will extend the part by about 1 mm, so that you won't ever have to add any material, but you may have to take a little bit off just to make it fit nice and snug. But there we go. There's our hatch. That's how you build it.